Hong Kong has never been a very highly regulated labour market as compared to other neighbours within the region, and definitely not comparable to the US or the EU. We currently have limited protection on working hours, such as we only have, for example, 1 rest day per 7 days under the employment ordinance. Certain occupations, such as security personnel and bus captains, are also subject to working hours regulations in the form of statutory notice or occupation guidelines. However, these are only very restricted to their particular occupation. Since we started having minimum wage since May 2011, some has argued that it only makes sense to also have the statutory working hours for because that's the natural consequence to follow. So the government has announced in both the 2010-11 and 2011-12 policy address that it would embark on a policy study on standard working hours, which the Labour Department actually completed at the end of 2012. The Standard Working Hour Committee was also formed in April of 2013 to look further into the issue. By way of background, standard hours limit refers generally to the number of hours that employees are expected to work on a regular basis. Some regimes will also provide for overtime pay at which work beyond the standard pay rate, at which the work beyond the standard hours are remunerated. Some jurisdictions, however, on the other hand, stipulates a maximum working hour by setting a limit beyond which work must be stopped, with or without overtime. In view of Hong Kong's environment, I don't think we're going to have a maximum working hours, but instead we probably would have something more closer to standard hours with some sort of overtime pay. First of all, for advantages, I think it really depends on what the objectives of the particular government is. The experience around the region is that some use it to promote occupational self and safety, some aim at job description, some aim to protect sort of a work-life balance, and some to promote fair competition. A good system can achieve one or more of the above. In both the policy study and by the Labour Department and the committee study so far, actually the objective for Hong Kong is to be identified. But I suspect it will be a combination of protection of occupational health and safety and promoting better work-life balance. In a study of the Labour Department, the average weekly total working hours for all employees in Hong Kong are about 47 hours. Most work more than 40 hours per week, and nearly a quarter had overtime work. However, interesting to note that only half of those people are remunerated for their overtime pay. The disadvantages and the challenges, I think, are probably similar. The first and foremost challenge is to decide what is the objective for Hong Kong and then create a system which achieves that objective, but recognizing the fact that some people may be disadvantaged by that system. For example, the smaller and medium enterprises would probably be largely affected by this new regime. How to actually define working hours is also going to be difficult. For example, would on-call be a part of working hours? There may also be a people shift. For example, employers are probably less willing to employ long-term staff, but rather they may shift to employ part-time staff or independent contractors to reduce their cost. Finally, I think enforcement is also going to be a difficulty, but these are all the things that the government will need to work around to try and make this work. Our neighbours, such as Korea, Japan, Australia, and China, do have standard working hours legislation. The EU and US, of course, are the forerunners of this particular area of law. However, as Hong Kong is actually known to be flexible and service-orientated, it's actually quite difficult to say that not having a standard working hour regime would significantly affect Hong Kong's competitiveness, I would say. Of course, economic consequences will no doubt be one of the government's major consideration in considering this particular piece of possible legislation. The Standard Hours Working Committee is doing a consultation between May to July of this year, so we're actually in the middle of this consultation. It has also commissioned a organisation called C Network Limited as the consultant to assist in collecting views from various sectors of the community. The objective of the public consultation, of course, includes enhancing the various sectors' understanding of what exactly is working hours issues, also to acquire an in-depth understanding of the current working hours pattern, what people are actually doing, what are the occupational requirements, and lastly, to provide channels for the various sectors of the community to give views on working hours issues. Therefore, my advice to employers is to take this opportunity to understand the issues surrounding standard working hours and voice out their concerns. The committee will coordinate the results and finally make a recommendation to the government. But I think public consultation is important because a lot of the input would come from the public, and therefore employers should try to voice out their concerns. In terms of whether or not they should be considering any policies at this stage, I think it's actually too early to tell. They could start thinking about it, but unless and until the government actually comes into any more concrete plans for standard working hours, I would suggest employers to probably just hold off for now.